There's a number that will probably surprise you. Roughly 80% of people born with dwarfism have two average height parents. No family history, no warning, just a random genetic event that happens in roughly 1 out of every 25,000 births. And if you ever fall in love with one of these people, marry them, build a life with them, your entire world quietly rearranges itself in ways almost nobody talks about. Here's the strange part. Most people imagine that life would be defined by height. The reach, the stairs, the car seat. That stuff is real, but it's not the part that changes you. The part that changes you is something else entirely, something tied to genetics, to history, to a community most people don't even know exists. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some couples make a decision at the doctor's office that most people never have to think about in their entire lives. Let's start with the basics, because almost everyone gets this wrong. There are over 200 documented types of skeletal dysplasia, the medical term for dwarfism. But one form, called achondroplasia, makes up about 70% of all cases. It's caused by a mutation in a single gene, FGFR3, which controls how cartilage turns into bone. The mutation slows that process down, especially in the long bones of the arms and legs. That's why the average adult height for someone with achondroplasia sits around 4 feet 4 inches for men and about 4 feet 1 inch for women. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part almost nobody outside the community knows. If you marry someone with achondroplasia, and your average height, your children have a 50% chance of having it too. Simple coin flip, every pregnancy. But what if both partners have achondroplasia? That's where things get heavier. There's a 50% chance the child inherits one copy of the gene, like the parents. A 25% chance the child is average height, and a 25% chance the child inherits the gene from both parents, what's called double dominant, which is almost always fatal before or shortly after birth. That 25% isn't a footnote, it's a number that real couples sit with. Genetic counselors bring it up before pregnancy, not after. Couples who are both little people often talk about this risk the way other couples talk about whether to have kids at all, except theirs comes with a statistic attached to it from day one. And this is just the first layer, because marrying into this experience doesn't just change your family planning, it changes your house. Picture your kitchen right now, the counters, the light switches, the top shelf in your cabinet. None of it was built with a 4-foot-tall adult in mind. It was built for a world that assumes everyone is somewhere between 5'4" and 6'2". So couples where one partner has dwarfism often quietly redesign their homes. Lowered counters, pull-down shelving, modified pedal extensions clipped onto car brakes and gas pedals. Step stools tucked into every room like a piece of furniture nobody questions anymore. But here's the twist. Most people don't expect. It's rarely the partner with dwarfism who struggles the most with this adjustment. It's the average height partner. Because for the first time in their life, they're the one ducking under things designed for someone else's body. They're the one who has to learn that the world wasn't built around them either, just from the opposite direction. Couples describe it almost like switching countries. Same house, same furniture. Completely different relationship with space. And space isn't the only thing that gets renegotiated. So does the outside world, because the world doesn't just look at height differently. It has treated height differently for a very long time, and that history doesn't disappear just because you fall in love. Here's something most people don't know. Well into the 20th century, people with dwarfism were regularly exhibited in circus sideshows and freak shows, sometimes literally billed as oddities for paying audiences. P.T. Barnum built part of his fortune on this. It wasn't ancient history. Sideshow performers with dwarfism were still touring into the mid-1900s. Employment discrimination wasn't formally illegal in the U.S. until the Americans with Disabilities Act passed in 1990. That's not centuries ago. That's within living memory of people who are still alive today. So when you marry someone with dwarfism, you don't just inherit a partner, you inherit an awareness of how recently the world treated people like them as spectacle rather than as neighbors, co-workers, and equals. Partners describe a specific moment that almost all of them go through the first time they're out in public together and someone stops, stares, laughs, or worse, tries to take a photo without asking. It's not rare. It's not occasional. For many couples, it's a near-weekly occurrence, and the average height partner often says it's the thing that taught them the most about what their partner has carried their whole life. But here's the part that flips the whole narrative on its head, because dwarfism communities didn't just absorb that history. They organized against it. In 1957, an actor named Billy Barty, who had achondroplasia and worked in Hollywood, gathered 21 other little people in Reno, Nevada, and founded an organization called Little People of America. It started as a support network. Today, it's thousands of members strong, with regional and national conventions held every year. And here's the detail that surprises people every single time they hear it. These conventions have become one of the biggest informal matchmaking events in the country for little people. Because outside the convention, the dating pool for someone with dwarfism who wants to date another little person can be incredibly small, statistically. You might be one of only a handful of people with your specific condition within hundreds of miles. But at an LPA convention, suddenly there are hundreds of people who understand your exact daily experience without you having to explain a single thing. Some of the most well-known marriages in the public eye reflect this same dual reality: relationships where both people fully understand the lived experience, and relationships where one partner is average height and has to learn it. Actor Peter Dinklage, who has achondroplasia and became globally known through Game of Thrones, has been married to his wife, Erica Schmidt, a theater director of average height since 2005. And they're raising 2 children together. Their relationship is a real, public example of exactly the dynamic we've been describing: one partner who's lived this since birth, one partner learning the world from a new angle, and a family built across that gap. Now let's talk about health, because this is where the stakes get real, and where the relationship often becomes less about romance and more about partnership in its truest sense. People with achondroplasia face specific, well-documented medical risks: spinal stenosis, where the spinal canal narrows and can compress nerves, sleep apnea, often linked to differences in airway structure, and increased pressure on weight-bearing joints over decades of life. None of these are guaranteed, but they're common enough that orthopedic and neurological checkups become a routine, lifelong part of the relationship, not a one-time conversation. Many partners describe becoming, almost without noticing, their spouse's most consistent health advocate, tracking symptoms, pushing for specialist referrals, learning more about achondroplasia-specific medicine than most general doctors will ever know. And that detail matters more than people realize, because general practitioners often don't have specialized training in skeletal dysplasias. Couples frequently end up traveling to specific regional centers, places like the Greenberg Center for Skeletal Dysplasias at Johns Hopkins, just to get accurate, condition-specific care. So part of marrying into this life is becoming, in a very real sense, a researcher and a navigator of a medical system that wasn't built with your family in mind. But here's the thing: almost every partner in this kind of marriage says, once you ask them the right question, they don't describe their life as harder. They describe it as more deliberate. Every accommodation, every conversation, every stare they learned to ignore together, it all became proof, over and over, that the relationship was a choice made on purpose, not by default, in a world full of relationships that drift along because they're easy. Theirs got built, piece by piece, because it mattered enough to build. And maybe that's the real answer to the question this video opened with. The life isn't defined by a number on a height chart. It's defined by how much intention 2 people are willing to put into a life the world didn't design for them, and how, somewhere in that effort, it becomes the most normal thing in the world.